Beneath a Meth Moon, a novel by Jacqueline, Woodson. My name is Laurel Dene. I'm 15 years old, but looking at the past events in my life, you would think of me as aged beyond my years. Let's start at the beginning. All my life, I've loved living in Pass Christian, Mississippi. We had a place right along the water, and I used to love the times I'd spend with my family along the shimmering blue coast of the Gulf of Mexico. We'd play in the sand and laugh until we cried, and then we'd do it all over again. Dad running along beside me, Mom cradling baby Jesse Jr. in her arms as Milady relaxed in the sun. Oh, Milady is actually my grandmother, but she would never approve of me calling her that. She was such a free spirit, always giving us advice in her own quirky kind of way, with a twinkle in her eye and a shake of her icy blonde hair, which she had actually dyed and turned to a magnificent blue, like the water we were all surrounded by. Soon enough, that water would come to haunt me for the rest of my life. When I was 13, I was awoken early one morning by my mother, who was busy helping my dad pack up the car. I didn't know what was going on or where we were going, but in a whirlwind of dressing, packing, and eating, the next thing I knew I was in the car with Jesse Jr., sleeping quietly in the car seat beside me. My dad explained that there was a call for a flood warning, but Milady refused to leave and Mom refused to leave Milady alone, so they stayed behind. He reassured me there was nothing to worry about, but the tears in Mom's eyes still made me nervous. Nevertheless, Mom being Mom made me promise to be nice to my aunt in Jackson, where we were headed to stay until the storm passed. We had to be on extra good behavior with her since my uncle left due to strange behavior, as my mom explained. Staying with my aunt was fine. My 3 little cousins adored me, so it was fun seeing them, despite the house feeling continually cramped. But as we reached the second day of the flooding, we stopped receiving contact with Mom and Milady. The adults tried to remain positive, but when we were given the okay to drive back to Pass Christian, the police directed us up the hill to the morgue. I don't think I've ever seen my father so broken and confused, and all I could feel was shock. That was how I lost my mother and grandmother. After the funeral service and an extended stay in Jackson, we moved up to Galilee, Pennsylvania. We were completely landlocked, far away from the water that once had made us feel so secure and now so unsure. We were definitely disconnected from something that was such a big part of our lives. Besides being gray and flat, Galilee wasn't so bad. It definitely wasn't the most prosperous of areas, but it worked. I quickly made friends with Kaylee, a girl with the darkest skin I'd ever seen. She was so fun and kind and had the most welcoming smile that was just bursting with life. She urged me to join the cheer team with her, and after a few cartwheels and shouting, I was in. Go Tigers! That first basketball game was what changed my life forever. It was when I met T-Boom. Okay, I know, T-Boom is a ridiculous name, but being co-captain of the team with amazingly good looks and that tattoo of a gumbo bowl on his shoulder just drew me in right away. He looked like home. People say love at first sight doesn't exist anymore, but that's what happened with T-Boom and me. It's like we both knew the other for 100 years, and yet the first time I met him was when he invited me to hang out at 7-Eleven after the game. All I could say to T-Boom was yes, 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 so of course when he asked me if I liked to party, I agreed. We walked over to our own piece of paradise across that 7-Eleven parking lot, and he kissed me. He kissed me! It was magical. I was feeling a million things at once, and I never wanted it to end. He grabbed a small plastic bag with white powder out of his pocket, and it seemed to glow in the moonlight, his own little piece of the moon. He took some out and sniffed it hard, and I watched as it disappeared up his nose. Next thing I knew, I was snorting my own bit of the moon, and it felt amazing. I was cold and warm and tingly and didn't know if I wanted to laugh or cry, but all I knew was that I wanted more. So we continued on like this, me and T-Boom, for months following our first encounter. So blissfully in love and so blissfully unaware of the effects the moon would take on both of our lives. I came to find out that T-Boom's moon was actually meth, and that he'd gotten it from Donnersville, which is about 7 miles away from our hometown. We'd both heard of the meth angels, the kids that die from meth, but we knew that we would never let the drug get us in over our heads. Those kids were being stupid and abusing the moon, we would say. We just want to admire it and share its glow. For me, the moon took away all the pain of losing my mother and grandmother. It erased the fighting with my dad, my friends, not belonging in this new town, and it made me stronger. It made me forget. Little did we know how quickly things would escalate. Now, I don't want to give out too much information about my life and all the struggles I went through, but let's just say if it wasn't for the kindness of a stranger named Moses, I wouldn't be alive to tell my story. He was a painter, and his oranges and chocolate sandwiches made me temporarily forget about the moon and instead think about how he was strange in the way that my uncle was strange. They both liked men. Anyway, I'll let you read more to find out the details of my life in Beneath a Meth Moon. Jacqueline Woodson is the winner of the Margaret A. Edwards Award for Lifetime Achievement in Writing for Young Adults, is author of Newbery Honor winners After Tupac and Dee Foster, Feathers, and Showway, Coretta Scott King Award winner and Los Angeles Times Book Prize title Miracles Boys, National Book Award finalist Locomotion and Hush, and many others. She lives with her family in Brooklyn, New York. Beneath a Meth Moon was written in 2012.